In our society, the highest paid people are those who know more about what they're doing than the average person. They know more of the critical facts and ideas and information and the skills than the average person in their field. As a result, they can make a more valuable contribution in a knowledge-based society, and they can live the best life possible. They are valued more, they're respected more, and ultimately they are paid more money and promoted more often because they have more education. The rule is that to earn more, you must learn more. If you want to increase your level of income and achieve the best life for yourself, you must increase your level of intellectual capital, and thereby the value of the knowledge component in what you are doing. And you must do it starting today. My friend Jim Rohn said that formal education will make you a living, but personal education will make you rich. And knowledge is becoming obsolete at a more rapid rate today than ever before, so therefore you must be continually replenishing your knowledge or you're actually falling further behind. Pat Riley, the basketball coach, used to say, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And in terms of knowledge, if you're not continually upgrading your knowledge, the knowledge that you have is becoming useless over time. So here's a good question for you, is what one piece of knowledge would be most helpful to you in your career? What particular type of knowledge? Would it be marketing? Would it be sales? Would it be time management? Because you can't become good at everything, so you've got to pick your shots. You know, the snipers say, one shot, one kill. What I have found is you don't try to learn a whole bunch of things. What you do is you say, what is the most valuable piece of knowledge or knowledge area that I need to upgrade my skills in? And whatever it is, you take that one subject and you major in that subject. You say, all right, for the next month, 3 months, year, I'm going to major in that subject. Now here's the second force multiplier, the second factor that increases your probability, and it's skill. Now knowledge, properly learned and practiced, turns into a skill. And today our skills are mental skills. We don't learn physical skills, we learn mental skills. And mental skills are ways of thinking and acting and making decisions and getting results. The critical factor in knowledge and skills is always results. It's always results. Now here's what we know, and it's important to point this out, is that if you want to be successful, you have to be in the top 10% in your field. I had dinner with a gentleman named Gary Becker about 2 years ago in Chicago, and he's a Nobel Prize winning economist, and he wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal, and he said, we don't have an income gap in America today. It's important to understand because the income gap is the big political thing. What we have is a skills gap. He said, it's like in a marketplace. You go into the marketplace or like an auction, and people with really good skills are being bid up. People, I want you, I'll hire you. And people with average skills or mediocre skills are just not really in demand. There's nobody demanding them. This brings me to a quick story I wanted to tell you. Once upon a time, there was a nuclear power plant that was suffering severe mechanical difficulties. And this power plant, power generation was down by about 40%. I had a nuclear engineer in one of my courses. He said, based on what you told me, the plant would be losing about $1.2 to $1.3 million a day in electricity generation if it was off 40%. So that's kind of the numbers that the plant management was dealing with, and they couldn't find it. They did everything possible to find, why is the plant slowing down? It was just running like sludge, if you like. And finally, they bit the bullet, they got a hold of their ego, and they called MIT and had them sent down one of the foremost nuclear power plant experts in the country. They came down, he came down, drove out to the plant, put on a white smock, nice gentleman, professorial, picked up a clipboard, and he began walking around this massive control room, taking notes and looking at the gauges and the barometers and amp meters. And afternoon of the second day, he said, that's the problem. And he got up in a chair and he took a big black marker out of his pocket and he put a big black X on the gauge. He said, that's it. He said, replace this apparatus and the whole plant will be back up to full power. Thank you very much. He put down his clipboard, took off his smock, thanked them for their time, drove back to the airport, caught his plane back to MIT. Well, they were all waiting. The engineering crew was waiting like runners at the gate for his judgment. Once he gave his judgment, wham, they all went together. They stripped it all down, and lo and behold, deep within this apparatus was a major mechanical malfunction that was not detectable from the outside. So they immediately went to work. They replaced it with all new equipment, put it all back together again, and assembled it, and then threw the switches, and the whole plant went up to full power. And they were so happy. They were high-fiving and cheering and patting each other on the back and so on. They were all happy. And they're all happy like this for another week until they received a bill from the consultant for services rendered, $10,000. Well, the general plant manager calls in the senior maintenance engineer, says, look at that. The guy comes out here, stands around for a couple of days, writes one X on one gauge, and sends us a bill for $10,000. $10,000, I mean, that's outrageous. Yeah, we should make him itemize his account. Yeah, let's make him itemize his account. So the plant manager wrote back and said, dear sir, you know, with all due respect, all you did was write one X on one gauge. $10,000 seems like an awful lot of money for that little amount of work. Could you please itemize your account in a little more detail? So about 10 days later, they got a new bill back. It said, for writing X on gauge, $1. For knowing which gauge to write X on, $9,999. In other words, it wasn't the amount of physical labor, and this certainly applies to your profession, it wasn't the amount of physical labor, it's the amount of brain work that went into doing this, the precision brain work. So it's really important with knowledge and skill. Make a decision to get to be into the top 10%. And remember this, and this was a shocker for me because I got such bad grades in school, is nobody's better than you and nobody's smarter than you. Nobody's better than you, nobody's smarter than you. You have more brain power than you could use in 100 lifetimes. Don't ever, no matter what you got as grades in school, no matter how hard it's been for you to learn a subject, don't ever allow yourself to think that other people are smarter than you.
Words have almost the power of God. That's why you never want to be lazy in language. Our ability to speak, our ability to frame words into such a way that we create images and pictures, help someone to understand, help someone to become educated, help someone to see what they couldn't see before. And here's what human words can create, the light of insight. Human words can do that. It's called the unseen magic. Let's say someone cannot see how they can possibly be successful, and you come along and tell them your testimonial, choosing the best words you can, and when you finish, here's what they say, now I can see. Before you got here, I was blind. Before you got here, I was in the dark. Now that you've talked to me, I'm beginning to see. It's beginning to dawn on me. The lights are going on. It can be the beginning of a whole brand new life when the lights go on. It is so powerful. Human beings have the unique ability by language. That's some of the greatest gifts you can bestow. Helping people to see. That's one of the greatest gifts. Words are so powerful if they're framed right. This is a craft. Don't get lazy in learning this craft because it'll serve you so well at home. It'll serve you so well in the marketplace. It'll serve you so well in your career and making your fortune. This craft of communication. Be aware of your feelings. Be aware of your emotions. And as that experience grows, now when you get ready to talk, you've got the blend of knowledge and the blend of feelings to put into your conversation. And that's what creates the power. Here's what's really powerful. Words loaded with emotion. See, that's what's unbelievably powerful. Because people primarily buy from emotion and not from logic. Most of our decisions are emotional. Here's how much logic we need. Enough logic to justify an emotional decision. Emotions. We go for the emotion. Look at Hitler and his ability to preach. Look at Stalin and his ability to preach. Lenin, as wrong as they were, they believed it with all of their heart. Disastrous results. But they put everything they had into it. The emotional content was unbelievable, powerful. Yes, in an evil direction, but it can also be used for a good direction. This intensity, strength, power, emotion. Feelings and emotions, changes. The whole outcome of communication. Words with strong feeling change the meaning. Words can have power if they're loaded with emotion and belief and courage, love, understanding, awareness, sympathy, concern, being touched by somebody. If you put more of that into what you say, it'll have a more incredible effect. Here's the combination. Well-chosen words mixed with measured emotion. Meaning, not too much power for a minor point. The actor on the stage or in the movies, in giving a performance, has to learn this craft of the right amount of emotion with the dialogue and the words that are to be spoken. It can be so powerful if it's measured well. See, if you had a powerful point and a little bit of emotion, that wouldn't make sense. Nobody would get it. So here's the key. Make a big deal out of a big deal, and then smaller emotional content on a little minor deal. That's an art. That's a craft. Adjust your style to fit the occasion and the emotional content so that it works, so that it makes sense. That when you burst on the scene, it's called for. The point is called for, that much emotion. You've got to be like a surgeon. We expect the doctor not to attack the patient, but we expect the doctor to attack the disease, to attack the problem, to make the operation successful, save the patient, destroy the disease. So here's what we expect a doctor to be, very professional. So you can't be reckless here now going after the problem when it seems like you're going after the person. This is important stuff here because a lot of people really get destroyed here by not being careful like a surgeon. Matters of the heart are delicate. Some people go after matters of the heart with a hatchet, right? Too severe. They're not careful enough to handle the problem, to go after the problem. But the key is to save the patient. Here's one of the best ways to attack a problem, and that's to confess you've got it or that you've had it. Say, Mary, the reason I'm talking to you about this is I'm telling you I've been through it, and I made some wrong decisions. Let me tell you what it carved out of my life that I'll never get back. One of the best illustrations is to use yourself. Say, John, I want you out of this ditch because I remember when I was in the ditch and stayed a little too long. You can't imagine what it cost me to keep putting off the decision, keep putting off the decision. I'm telling you, I've got some regret, a little bit regret till this day. Don't let that happen to you. Use yourself. One of the best illustrations is yourself. If you're getting on somebody's case, say, hey, I remember somebody got on my case and saved the day. If that person hadn't come along, got on my case, told it like it was, give it to me straight, I'm telling you, I'd have been lost, I'd have been gone, wouldn't be here to talk to you. So listen to me from my own experience. See, that kind of communication is so valuable. Because if you don't do that, you can do more damage than good. Words not only give life, words kill. With words, you can kill someone's incentive. You can kill someone's dignity. You can either give life or take life by the words you use. So you got to be very careful now with this emotional power. You got to use it very wisely. You got to pick up the emotional signals, how you feel, and make sure you understand other people's problems and difficulties. When someone has a problem, you recognize it. You say, John, I can understand how that feels. I've been there. Understanding, sympathy, awareness, sincerity, excitement, being positive. Those are all the elements. All of us have an audience, whether it's the audience across the backyard fence or a community audience or the audience of your family. If you're in sales, it's your clients. If you're in business, it's the business community. All of us have an audience. The key is to know what's happening. What you don't want to do is turn off a big chunk of your audience unduly. Study your audience, whoever your audience may be. Read the effect you're having. When you communicate, see, that's just major. Look in their eyes, look in their face. Analyze what's going on between you and whoever you're talking to, another person. Whether it's a business conversation or a social conversation, you've got to be keenly aware of what's happening to whoever you're communicating with. I used to have a challenge on reading my audience. I was so absorbed in my notes, it took me a while, right, to look up from my notes to see what was happening. What's going on up here? What's going on back over here? Especially now with everything moving so fast. You know, people haven't got much time to spend much time. So you've got to get it said. You've got to get it told in a fairly short period of time now because life is moving so fast. If you want to be effective in communication, you've got to be brief on any one point. You can't linger long. I used to tell long stories. I just drug them out too long. People get weary. Because I got a good disclosure for you. The human attention span is short. You just got to practice being brief, being brief, being brief. Short, short. Attention span is short. The better you get at communication, the more you can say things in fewer words. It doesn't take 10 minutes. In a minute or two, you've said it. In 15 minutes, you've said it. It used to take you a couple of hours. You get to where you can compact. Once you're really good at your own language, you can compact an idea into a shorter period of time. You have to be a good listener. If you want to communicate well with someone, let them talk. Isn't that true, though? We've all got about 16 waking hours. Practice listening those 16 hours. And I say practice listening because listening isn't easy. But if you will practice listening the 16 hours you're awake, sure enough, from surprising sources comes great ideas. Mr. Schoaf asked me a very keen question when I was around him in those early days, age 25. His question on this particular day was, Mr. Rohn, how do you affect other people? I said, I haven't given that much thought. He said, that's obvious. Whatever he had to say, I was willing to tolerate it because I knew I had a lot of room to grow and had a lot of changes to make. But how do you affect other people? It's just a major, major question. Develop an interest in two primary things, life and people. Most people want to make it, but they don't have that interest, that keen interest in what's going on around them. So if you really want to develop this reservoir of information for future conversations, you've got to be fascinated with life, fascinated with stories, fascinated with human behavior. Why do people act like they act? Why do they do what they do? Now also be interested and fascinated with your own life. How come I act like I act? Why do I always do this? Why do I feel this way? See, that kind of fascination will start helping you to gather up the information for good communication. As you let all of life affect you, so it affects your conversation. So it affects your communication. So people have this incredible sense that there's a great deal about you and your sensitivity and your interest and your fascination with life that makes life uniquely worthwhile for you. And I'll tell you what, it'll show up in your conversation. It'll show up in your feelings. It'll show up in your ability to reach people. Don't be afraid of it. Use it. Develop it. So that you'll have this working knowledge, this depth of awareness, so that when you get ready to talk, there'll be all this substance there waiting to back up whatever you have to say. And that's what creates the power. Communicating with other people is important. Exchanging ideas is important. Getting our feelings across is important, and if you treat it casually, sure enough, you just won't be much better at it a year from now, 2 years from now than you are today. I was clumsy when I started. To get better at something, you just have to go do it, and then just practice it. Get good at it, get better at it. As clumsy as it might be to start a better program of better communication, saying it better, saying it better. Usually when we introduce somebody, the introduction's usually full of so whats. Usually an introduction, you have to give your list of credits. But when somebody gets through with he's president of this and vice president of this, and he's got several companies, corporations, does business around the world, those are pretty well so whats. See, so what puts up the barrier instead of building a bridge. It blocks this flow of communication. Mr. Schoaf gave me a little counsel on this. Don't try to impress, he said. Rather, learn to express. You want something that makes you real, something that makes you a person that someone would desire to talk to. Sometimes those first few seconds, sometimes that first minute is just so important to establishing rapport, establishing contact. Somebody once said, you never have a second chance to make a first impression. So sometimes how those opening seconds go is very important. But that's identification. Getting acquainted. In the identification process, we use this little mental phrase. We want somebody to say, me too. Say, well, here's what happened to me. Somebody says, well, me too. Here's how I felt. Someone says, I understand how that feels. Me too. My little story about meeting the little Girl Scout. That's identification story. She gives me this unique presentation. Asked me if I want to buy, and I wanted to, but I didn't have $2. Somebody says, I know how that feels. I know what that's like. I've been caught without any money. I know how embarrassing that is. See, that's an identification story. And I say, to this day, I can remember the pain. Somebody says, I've had some of that pain too. I know what that's like. All of that is identification. And you just learn to do that, trying to find something you have in common with someone else. But that's always a challenge. And every person and every audience is a brand new challenge. Every time you talk with somebody, it's a brand new challenge to identify. Now, in the identification process, make sure, if you tell little stories about yourself in identifying, make sure that they're accurate stories. You don't want a lack of credibility to creep into your communication. If you're giving testimony in a trial, if they catch you in one lie, guess what they do with the rest of your testimony? They throw it all away. How can we trust you? You say, well, this is the only time I lied. Hey, how can we trust that? Don't let lies taint your testimony. You may not harm someone else, particularly with lies and exaggeration, but the greatest harm will come to yourself. We hope someone will be both truthful and sincere, but we don't mistake sincerity for truth. To be sincere, it's got to be true. You just can't come up with sincerity telling an erroneous story. Now, you might make it sound sincere, but sure enough, someday it'll come back to haunt you. Almost everybody wants the feeling from someone else that you're not playing games with me, that you're really disclosing to me your true feelings, your true awareness, what's going on in your life and your heart and your soul and your mind. So you just got to be sincere. Tell the truth.
Need a little pick-me-up today? Welcome to the new Fresh Motivation app, where you'll find daily motivation, daily quotes. Listen to your favorite speeches in the background or with a black screen, so nothing interrupts your motivational moment, where you can create your personal profile, create playlists of your favorite speeches and quotes, add personal notes, and start setting goals. Fresh Motivation, the home of motivation. Get it now for free on Google Play.